Boys, coming to you alongside the ducks again today, this afternoon. And today we're gonna do a fun one today, this afternoon. This is Friday afternoon banter, and my oh my, do I have a banter piece ready for you today. So I'm walking through the park. I waited to get to the park to do this because I want to feel a bit of social unease as I'm doing it. So hopefully I'll go through a crowd of people and I meet my old form teacher. That'd be brilliant. So today the video is the top 5 womanizer, playboy, Lothario, loverboy Romeos, right, from popular culture. From global popular culture. So we're going to discuss them one by one, and we're going to go from 5 down to 1. And I think my list, it's going to offer some very interesting surprises for anyone who watches this. So just to explain, I've got it written down here. I thought about it over lunch and I wrote down my top 5. Just to explain it, my criteria is heavily dependent on context. Heavily dependent on context. The Tinder swindler, for example, I'd put him below, let's say, Paris, who seduced Helen of Troy. Tinder swindler may have seduced all these girls and got all this money off them. It's completely, obviously, immoral, but he was a good seducer. But Paris, he seduced a lady, the face, the most beautiful woman on earth, apparently. So I'll put Paris above him. Okay, so this list is heavily dependent on context. So number 5, we'll start with the man himself, the Nescafe Don himself, Mr. Clooney, George Clooney, the Hollywood actor. It's almost a given that he does have like a string of beautiful girlfriends behind him, but that's not so much why I picked him as number 5. That's a given. Why I picked him was 2 reasons. Reason number 1 is when he kind of retired from being a playboy, he just casually kind of looked around and was like, right, I want a good, intelligent, cool wife. Who's the hottest lawyer in the UN, in the United Nations? Oh yeah, Amal. Yeah, she looks nice. Hello, I'm George.
Well, you guess first.
So now he has 2 children with her. So I think he was about 52, maybe even older, maybe mid-50s, and he just was like, yeah, I'm gonna get married now. I'm gonna have children now. What do I want? I don't want one of these Hollywood girls. I want Amal. Yeah, top babe UN lawyer. Fair play, George. I respected that. I thought it was a great move on his part. Reason number 2 that I picked Clooney is his portrayal. I think people now probably won't appreciate how big Clooney was. In his prime, he was the number 1 leading man seducer. Yeah, on film. He was above like McConaughey, he was above Brad Pitt. It was George Clooney. He was the number 1 guy. And the way he acted as well, he knew how to act it. I don't know if it was, we don't know what he's like in real life, but he really knew how to act the seducer. It was just like, it was so casual, it was so easy, playfully challenging, obviously like very, very good looking as well. He made his debut, I think, in ER. That was his big breakthrough, and then he went on to do Ocean's 11 and all these other films. He was just an absolute institution. And then when he retired, as I say, just looked around the UN and said, yeah, she looks good. So Clooney, a very strong number 5 in my opinion. Number 4, another guy from Hollywood, very different ilk, very different kind of guy. This guy is a true rake. a true demon, a true demon of the game, and it's Mr. Jack Nicholson. Oh my god, that guy is he was the notorious like seducer of Hollywood. Jack Nicholson, super charismatic. A lot of the stuff with Nicholson is like, it's all hearsay, you know, Hollywood stories that go around, but there's so many of them. You think, yeah, they sound true, and even if they're not, they're cool enough for him to get number 4 on this list. I heard one of his move was, you also have to bear in mind, this was before mobile phones, it was before Instagram, it was before the internet. He was doing his damage, and I've heard his move was, you know, with like just the starlet or whatever, the young babe actresses that he would meet, he would just go to reception and say, oh, which room is she in or whatever. I'll call her up from reception and say, hey, it's Jack, when are we going to meet? It was just so cash. Yeah, I always thought he was a cool cat on camera as well, like, you know, yeah, amazing actor. His version of the Joker was, whew, there's been some good actors doing Joker, haven't there? So Jack Nicholson, an honourable number 4, 4th place here. Very, very strong candidate. I think in terms of like numbers, he might be the most prolific, actually. Number 3, swooping in at number 3 here. There's a lot of children around where I'm going right now, so I'm going to have to, for purposes of decency and civility, yeah, I'll mind my P's and Q's. So number 3 on this list of successful men is Ronaldo. Shout out to R9 as well, the old Ronaldo. He was also a bit of a don. He had to get a vasectomy. He had three children with 3 different women, but anyway, so was Romario, but they're not on the list. They don't make it. Sorry. CR7, Ronaldo. He is absolutely on the list, and I've actually got a personal story about Mr. Cristiano, a personal story about him, which is a good one. So this Ronaldo is he's a year older than me, and we're basically from a very similar, well, he's from Portugal, but he lived in Manchester, so we're from essentially the same region of the world. And when I was 19, I was dating a girl from Manchester, and anyway, she was really gorgeous, actually, and a bit loopy, to be honest, but I was young and she was fit, so that was good. And I remember, like, it was actually the first time I'd met her. She was telling me about how Ronaldo was pursuing her, and Ronaldo would pitch up at her house in his Lamborghini at like 3 a.m. on like a Tuesday night. And this was, you know, these were the days, again, it was pre-social media. When you're a footballer, you really could do whatever you wanted. No one cared, and actually people loved it because it was a bit of an urban myth, right? So those guys like, Ronaldo, Rooney, they were just complete, like, as long as they turned up to train for 2 hours as hard as they could do whatever they wanted. So Ronaldo is going all over Manchester in his Lambo, everyone's seeing him. And this particular girl, he was making a play for her. I don't know what happened with them. I don't know if she ceded to his advances or not. But she said, like, it happened like a couple of times. She gave him her number and he pitched up at her house like a couple of times, but like super weird times. And she like messaged him like, mate, what you doing? Like, my mum's here, dude. Now, okay, funny little story from my own life. Not particularly significant though. I dated a girl who Ronaldo was also after. Maybe Ronaldo banged her. I don't know. But that's not the part that actually shows what a seducer this guy is. You know, it's good to know, but the part that shows what a seducer this guy is, about 3 or 4 months later, I was in the south. I was living in the south, and I met a guy from Manchester, and immediately we got on, like immediately. Super cool guy. and same age as me. So we started to hang out, and I think it was one of the first meetings. I was like, oh, so do you have a girlfriend? Then he's like, yeah, my girlfriend's she's up in Manchester. I was like, all right, cool, yeah. He's like, yeah, it's weird, man, because Ronaldo's been after her. I was like, oh, right, yeah, that's funny. I was like, when was this? Was it over the summer? And he's like, yeah, he's been after her over the summer. And I was like, mate, he was after my girlfriend as well. So Ronaldo is just going round Manchester, summer 2005, pre-season, just absolutely mullering the scene, to the point that two random guys who happened to have girlfriends in that city, he'd approached both of our girlfriends and like got their numbers or whatever, pursued them, whatever. So yeah, imagine like we probably could have formed a self-help group, like 50 guys who'd yeah, probably 500 guys, yeah. And he's well known as well. Like some of the stories I've heard of him is just like he's actually like good at approach as well. Like he'll just crack on to air hostesses and stuff. Obviously the guy's got mad self-belief, and he is good looking and stuff like that, but I think he would be a monster even if he was a fat fuck. I really do. So Ronaldo's my number 3, and you know, obviously he's had all his models and all this type of thing. You know, he just casually leave like supermodels, just be like, yeah, sorry, you know. So yeah, he probably, I'd say most prolific would be him or Nicholson. Okay, so that's my list. 5 down to 3. We've got Clooney, Nicholson and Ronaldo. That is a dangerous team right there. Dangerous team. Number 2, and this is why I preceded this with context is important. Number 2 is the former French president, Nicolas Sarkozy. He is my number 2 GOAT, right? This guy was an absolute gangster, right? So Nicolas Sarkozy, politician, guys like, he was well known because he was like, part of his thing was he was like 5'6". People used to call him like Napoleon, right? So Sarko sweeps in to become the French Prime Minister, French president. He introduced self-employment to France, which I think was a good call, so well done, Sarko, for that. This was like, it was just before I was living in France, and he swept in. And in his first month as president, he divorced his wife, and he moved in his new girlfriend, Carla Bruni. So Carla Bruni was a supermodel. I think she was an actress as well, a musician. She was previously known as a supermodel who dated Mick Jagger, right? So this is like quite the departure from the normal like first lady, you know, the nice lady who like makes cakes and stuff, you know, whatever, shows up to the dignitaries meeting, and you know, she was an absolute like proper babe. She was like, obviously he was president, she was about 40, I would say, but like she looked incredible. So yeah, Sarko, he was the president of France, right? It's like one of the biggest countries in, the most important countries in the world. Certainly like top 3 most important in Europe, right? He was the president of France. He gets in, he sacks off his wife and moves in a supermodel. I was like, mate, are you actually taking the piss? The French press were losing their minds. They were absolutely losing their minds. But because of the nature of the French press, it's quite interesting. Like, it was more the TV and more like comics and stuff. The actual print media can't legally print information about the private lives of heads of state and politicians. They've actually got a law against it. It's called Loi de la vie privée that they've got there. They've got a law to their own private life. It's quite interesting. But like, you know, obviously this stuff gets around, like the comics and, you know, the paparazzi, different things, right? Different, and also covered in different countries as well. That law doesn't exist here, obviously. What an absolute gangster. Like, to give you a comparison, in the UK, it would have been the equivalent of Tony Blair booting out Cherie Blair and moving in Naomi Campbell and just being like, yeah, peace, you know. He probably, I mean, can you even, it's that crazy. What Sarkozy did is that crazy. And so for that reason, he is my number 2 Lothario gangster. Like, it was such a gangbanger, it was so good. Like, I think not since the days of Henry VIII has a head of state pulled such a beastly move in his personal life. And I just thought, wow, dude, you have my eternal respect. Legend of the game. So, we now have number 1 on this list. Oh man, I've enjoyed doing this list. We have number 1 on this list. And actually, he's inspired my style a little bit today, you know. A little bit. He is a French actor who starred in the cult movie La Haine. He also starred in the equally cult but much bigger movie Black Swan. Don't know what else he's been in. I don't really care. Vince Cassel. Vince Cassel is my goat. Vince Cassel is my goat. Let me just give you a lot. You probably don't know who he is, but he's going to be in the thumbnail. But let me give you the lowdown on this guy, right? So Vince Cassel, you know, he's a decent level actor after La Haine, like certainly like very respected in Europe, and you know, like it was a cult movie, it was a real cult hit. About the French ghetto and all this type of stuff. He played a Jewish guy. He's not Jewish, but he played a Jewish guy in the French ghetto, right? That was his big breakthrough, around about 30, I think about 30 odd. And he shacks up. Obviously, he's an in-demand actor. Obviously, he's going to have like a major babe girlfriend. Yeah. He shacks up with a woman called Monica Bellucci. Yeah. Who is at the time, she is considered to be the hottest woman on earth. She was like voted in FHM magazine like 3 years in a row. Monica Bellucci, hottest babe on earth. Look her up. Just listen to her name. Monica Bellucci, like she was incredible. These are in like the pre-Insta days as well, where like to be considered hot, you had to almost be like almost scientifically dissected almost like on camera by all these like, you know, modeling agencies and stuff like that. This chick was a genetic specimen, super babe. Yeah, so Cassel comes along. Hello, my name is Vince. And he's got her, and he shacks up with her, and he marries Monica Bellucci. That alone is absolutely sick, to be honest with you. Okay, so they have their marriage. I think they have children together, right? So his DNA, he's got some beautiful DNA swimming around the world now. But then eventually, it's Hollywood or whatever, the actors, they eventually get divorced, go their separate ways. And he comes back and he has his little reign, he has his little string of babes. And I remember looking at them going, wow, he is literally finding the hottest woman in any movie and he's dating them. Like, I have a personal theory that he went through Mila Kunis. I think that he did in the film Black Swan. By the way they act together, I think that they did. And even if they didn't, I don't care anyway, I'm putting in my story. Okay? But anyway, like 20 years after marrying Monica Bellucci, he decides he's going to tie the knot again. This time with a Brazilian supermodel who is everything you expect from a Brazilian supermodel and more, yeah? Only now Vince is 51 and she's 21, yeah? Vince, my brother, what an absolute don. He just comes back in, 50 years old, and is like, hello, I'm Vince, you know, and yeah, picks up this absolutely insane Brazilian supermodel. Now they're married and they've got children. So for me, Vince is the North Star. Vince is my GOAT. Vince is my absolute goat. On 2 occasions, 25 years apart, he's legitimately been having children with a woman who is either considered or like basically is the hottest woman on earth. Yeah, like his current girl, like she's definitely up there as like one of the hottest in Brazil, like for sure. She's an absolute joke. So Vince, my brother, and he dresses like, he's got hair, but he dresses like I don't know, just a cool, you know, French denim kind of shit. His shades and stuff like that. So I thought, yeah, well, this is just my clothes, but it is a bit Vincey today. Maybe I was inspired subconsciously. So yeah, probably scandalized a few people on the road here, but that is my top 5 seducers. I'm going to give a few notable mentions as well at the end here. A few notable mentions. Who else did I have on the list? Notable mentions. Let's have a quick look. Oh, I had a disqualification. I disqualified Drake. Drake was DQ'd. He's right up there. Drake is right up there with all his groupies and stuff. It's a little bit, you know, the formula is not, the context isn't as interesting in my opinion, but he's definitely up there. But he gets a DQ because he's like, from what I understand, and I don't follow it really, but from what I understand, he's getting with people's girlfriends, and he's starting, there's friction between friends and things like this over women that he's instigating because he's seducing people's girlfriends and stuff. No, brother, that's a DQ. That's a straight disqualification. There's no need for doing there's no need for that, dude. You don't need to be doing that. It's a really poor move. It's a really poor move. Any guy knows, you know, your wingmen, or even like, you just don't go for people's girlfriends, like in general, like especially if you know them in any capacity. It's just not the thing to do. So sorry, Drake, he got disqualification. Who else was in there as a notable mention? Yeah, a couple of other politicians, you know, notable mentions. Notable mention number 1 would be Berlusconi, Silvio Berlusconi, and his famous bunga bunga parties. I don't know really much about him. I know he's had fit wives, but yeah, Berlusconi is it was the fact he was like 70, and there was all these stories coming out about how he was like, you know, Mr. Seducer of all these Italian ladies that would come to his mansion and stuff like this. And I'm pretty sure it was true, to be honest, based on the fact he's Italian and I've been around Italian guys. I can't even imagine what an Italian president would be like. He's actually fucking deranged. So Berlusconi, he gets a notable mention, as does Mr. Vladimir, as does Putin. He gets a notable mention as well. He did a bit of a Vince Cassel, like he got married like for a second time to like an insanely hot, she's a figure skater in Russia, which I thought was pretty impressive. I dig Putin's style, to be honest with you. He's going through, you know, ice figure skaters and smashing NATO. Yeah, he's all right with me. The last thing I'll say here is a guy who didn't get into the list, which you'd think would, right? Brad Pitt. He doesn't get on the list. He doesn't make it anywhere near the list. Because, well, he's actually said himself, I'm actually quite bad with women, despite the fact he's obviously super innocent. Possibly because he's so good looking, he's never had to actually develop any skills. And he said when he first got to Hollywood in his early 20s, he goes, I'm not even joking, I couldn't get a date. I was unknown and I couldn't get a date. And I believe him. Like, why would you admit that? You know? So he's like the best looking guy ever and he couldn't get a date. In a way, it's good for people to know that, you know. If he is shit at approach and he can't get a date, basically approach is important. But I think he's had some, you know, I think he's made some bad decisions, you know. I think he's just a guy who, because he's so sought after, they just kind of hunt him down, they just kind of come after him. If you remember his wife, Jennifer Aniston, that's what happened. She was pretty mediocre. She was nice, but she was mediocre. She hunted him down. Then Jolie hunted him down. She turned out to be a complete psychopath. So he doesn't make the list. He could be a late developer though. He might be, a few years time, he might be throwing bunga bunga parties. So we'll see. But yeah, there's the list. So just to resume a final time, We've got Clooney in at number 5. We've got, who have we got in at number 4? I've forgotten now. Jack Nicholson in at number 4. We've got Ronaldo in at number 3. We've got Le Président Sarkozy in at number 2. And we've got number 1, the absolute GOAT. The greatest looking children anyone could ever have, with the 2 hottest women on earth, Monica Bellucci. I don't even know his Brazilian girl's name, to be honest. She's a 21-year-old Brazilian super babe. So, yeah, Vince, merci mon ami.